Hello, everybody. I'm Jackie K. Cooper, and we have a special interview today. We have an interview with New York Times bestselling author, Lisa Gardner. Lisa, thank you so much for taking this time with us.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited we're getting to talk.
I know I've been such a fan of yours for so long, and you started the new book. It's the second in the series of the Franky Elkins. Okay, I had been with you all through the DD.
Yeah.
Are we ever going back to DD?
You know, I'm not an author who plans ahead, but for that matter, I've never even planned on writing a series. It's more the characters grow on me and I can't let them go. So your odds of seeing any character again are always high because they're always in the back of my mind. And sooner or later, if I can come up with the right crime, how weird does that sound? The characters, you look at those characters again.
When you say if I come up with right, because I'm sitting there thinking, does this stuff just come to you out of the air and you have this framework and you weave your way through it?
Well, you know, I think like a lot of readers and probably even you yourself, I read a lot of true crime. I watch a lot of true crime shows on TV. I'm always intrigued by those cases where the truth is stranger than fiction. One Step Too Far, which is the Franky Elkin book, and she joins a search party of 8 going into the woods to find a missing hiker. That was drawn from this very real life scenario where there's 1,600 people missing on national public lands and there's no one looking for them. Once the initial push is done, it's volunteers, it's people like Franky. So you have Franky Elkin books right now because I'm intrigued by the differences an everyday person can make. But, you know, if I get the right city crime, well then, you know, Boston Detective D.D. Warren will have to make an appearance.
You quote statistics in the book and they were overwhelming. I mean, I've read somewhere that you are an outdoors person.
I am an avid hiker. I live in the mountains of New Hampshire. I've had the opportunity to do some hiking down in Georgia, you know, the Appalachian Trail. It's gorgeous. I've used that for some books too. And, you know, when you're in a mountain town where, yes, absolutely, we have people go missing. We have some fatalities, very sadly. It is all volunteers. The search and rescue operation, you know, people get geared up and everyone, you know, really for 2, 4 weeks, 2 months. I mean, as long as there's hope, you know, a community, neighbors will push hard. But there's a certain amount of time when now it does not appear that you will find the person alive. Well, volunteers now have to go back to their everyday lives. So what happens? I mean, Timothy O'Day in One Step Too Far, his father is desperate to know what happened to his son. His mom is dying of cancer and wants to be buried next to his son.
Poignancy to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's I think part of the appeal of the Franky books or what I like writing about them, because I spent so much of my career as a thriller novelist doing homicides, is the person who vanishes without a trace as a particular kind of pain for a family and the loved ones left behind, because you don't have any answers at all. And, you know, Timothy O'Day's father kind of wonders in the book, is it better not to know? Because I feel like I have to know, but maybe when I get the answer, it'll be even worse than my nightmares, but I just have to know. And that's kind of what Franky's working towards. And I like about the books too, the cost of unfinished relationships. I mean, these are people who just disappeared, you know, the words that didn't get said, the arguments that were never resolved, the way that there's just this everyday vacuum for all of these people, you know, where that friend, that son, that husband used to be.
I am not an outdoors person. You see this room? I love this room. But I'll tell you, after reading your book, I'm glad I'm not an outdoors person.
You know, I'm such an avid hiker. So I finally write a book about hiking, which is my passion. And of course I use it for evil because that's what it means to be Lisa Gardner novel. Anything I do.
Just get me home. Get her home. Get somebody home.
And it was really fun because Franky, of course, is not an outdoors person. The first case she did, which you mentioned before she disappeared, is trying to find a missing Haitian teenager from downtown Boston, you know, the inner city. Now she's out in the woods, which is thinking, how hard can that be? I'm a big walker, hiking, it's one step. And very quickly she's like, oh dear, like I am
really
not
describe
prepared
that.
for this amount of quickness. So,
I mean, you make us know how painful everything is for all of them. I mean, the groomsmen that were, are part. Oh my gosh, it was, but I did feel like it was like, and I'm reaching back. But when I went away for camp, and I was with some people for a very short period of time, but you become best friends.
Yes.
This was what this was. These people forged an immediate bond for survival, if nothing else. But it was that feeling. There were deep emotions there.
And I like that aspect of it, that they're not 8 strangers per se, but Franky's like, this is a group that's not a group. Again, the 3 friends that were with Tim on the infamous camping weekend when he disappeared, they're their own little like guilt-stricken shut down pod. And then you have the father, Martin, who's so obsessed and so driven that he's frankly an asshole. And the Wyoming guide, who's, a legend, they're like their own thing. And then there's Franky, and she's with the 2 other kind of pseudo professionals, a Bigfoot hunter, which does play a role in real life searches. And the most important member of the team, Luciana, the dog handler, with Daisy, the cadaver dog, who really will be the star of the show. If you're doing a major search 5 years later, it's the dog that will make the discovery. Yep. But so they're fractured. But then you're right. As things start going bad to worse, very quickly, you start bonding.
Right. Boom. But I was doing some research on you, and it said you had a job before you started of doing research. Is that correct?
I was a research analyst for a Boston consulting firm, and it was very hard, but it actually was a great entree to being a thriller writer. So one of the things, because this was really the internet and Google, when corporations or consulting firms needed data then, you had to get the data. You couldn't Google it. That's what research analysts did. Often we were literally cold calling companies and gathering census data. And you learned how to, get people to talk to you on the phone, because often they're like, wait, what? And why should I tell you in this? And to be honest, when I decided I wanted to become a full-time suspense novelist, the big hang up for me was, well, I'm not a retired cop. I'm not a former investigative journalist. I'm not a lawyer. It's like, how am I going to get these people to talk to me? And well, after cold calling enough corporations, you're like, you pick up the phone, you're polite, tell the law enforcement agency, I'm writing a book and I want to get the information correct. And yeah, it really worked out well for being able to research these books now.
Well, I know you wrote One Step Too Far during COVID, did you not?
Yes.
So you weren't able to go out and scout locations and.
No. It's funny to me because well, and that's it. One Step Too Far to me is the COVID book. Why Wyoming? Because as long as I was trapped in my house, I wanted the biggest landscape I could think of to have my mind in, and the huge mountains of Wyoming. And think about it, even on TV now, the shows that have become huge, from Yellowstone to Big Sky to, we're falling back in love with the American West in wide open spaces because we've been shut in our homes for so long. And an outdoor book, hiking, I did get to do that regularly. And, you fall in love with it all over again. And you're like, if I'm going to sit at home, I just want to be picturing the woods and the mountains all the time. So there you go. You get one step too far. It was my way of coping.
All right. Let me ask you this, because I'm fascinated with this. But tell me, in your mind, why it's called One Step Too Far.
Oh, we just like that edge of things. Franky, she is an everyday average person who's trying to solve missing persons cold cases.
And she keeps putting herself, who works as a bartender on the side.
Yeah. But she's putting herself on the line in a very real way by, a third of the way through this book. Has she now gone one step too far? At what point is she going to push the envelope so much that, she's not a police officer, and she'll tell you she has no martial arts skills. She can't shoot a gun. She's terrified of the hunting knife she's supposed to be carrying on this thing. Those are not her skill sets, but she keeps putting herself in harm's way. How long can you get away with that? without going one step too far.
Has she bitten off more than she can chew?
Exactly.
But that's one, I love the book, you know that, but you get her thoughts, you get her doubts, you have that, you're inside her mind thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Why did I ever think that I could do this? But I want to go back. You were working, doing research and everything. Did you just know that you had a natural talent to write?
No, I've been a writer all my life. I actually wrote my first book when I was 20, and I sold it when I wrote it when I was 17. I sold it when I was 20. Now, I had a good 10 years there where I was a published author, but I mean, I still had a day job. I mean, I made some money and it was nice, but in the first 10 years, I wrote for love. Then I came up with this idea for a big thriller. That's what broke out. And, we joke in publishing 10 years later, you become an overnight success. But yeah, I've had stories and characters in my head forever. And I've always been doing my best to write them down. Certainly getting better with age, I like to think.
Well, I was fascinated too, though. Your first books were under another name. And this is not making fun or anything like that, but you picked what, Abigail Brown? Is that
Alicia Scott, actually?
Alicia Scott.
Yes, I started my career in romantic suspense for a publisher that encouraged you to take pseudonyms, which it worked out. But Scott was actually in honor of a cousin I had who died in a fire when we were young. So it was kind of nice to be able to do that.
Yeah. But you didn't do that for a long time. That was just for a short period of time. And then
exactly. And then the more I wrote, like a lot of authors, you start realizing what you love and what you're good at. And the more I wrote books, the more I wanted more police procedural. I wanted to be able to learn more about investigative procedures and forensics and bring that to the novel. So the ideas got bigger and bigger. And I realized as a writer, dialogue and action are two of the things I really like writing and I seem to be good at. And so it seemed to be very natural that really what I wanted to be writing was a big, thriller novel with a serial killer and many people at risk and possibly dying violent deaths. And that became The Perfect Husband. And that's the book that made me, that broke out the career.
All of those things, but you're also good about writing about relationships.
Oh, thank you.
No, really, you get involved with those characters and you get involved with those relationships. And
it's interesting to me in suspense right now, some of the top female authors all come from a romantic suspense background. And I feel like those beginning part of our career where it's the who that mattered the most, the characters, their relationship. We've carried that with us now to books that have a bigger plots, more action, but the who is now just integral to us. I mean, if you don't care about Franky, there's no point of this book. If you don't care about Timothy O'Day and his relationship with his friends, his fathers, all of that to me is really important in a thriller. You have to give it a heart so that the action then is compelling and you really want them to succeed. It matters to you.
We're having this interview thanks to our mutual friendship with Karen Slaughter, who I
love her.
But, do you find as a female writer of thrillers that, I guess I'm saying, I know with Karen, I will say to people, oh, you need to read Karen Slaughter, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, oh, no, that's too violent, this, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if a man were writing that, they wouldn't say that. Do you find that in any way directed at you and your books?
Well, it's interesting because I've been a thriller writer now for 20 years. And the first 10 years, I agreed with you. It seemed like the number one question for every reporter was, how can a woman write these books? Which was always weird to me. It's like, if you look at female history with, front lines and nursing loved ones through cancer and stuff like that. I mean, very real visceral experiences are more part of our lives. But I would also say that question doesn't come up anymore. I think there's enough progress and enough, acknowledgement that no, absolutely, we can and are doing this quite well.
Yeah. I never understood it because I just thought, what kind of filter is that you're reading the book through that, oh no, a woman can't write this, but a man
I never
could.
understood it myself, actually. I mean, I like to think everyone's tough, but considering how many women also have caretaking roles, and that can be completely heartbreaking, and if not graphic, if you have a friend going through cancer, if you're hospice for your parent.
True.
I don't think we're squeamish, and there seemed to be this sense that women are squeamish. I'm like, not anyone I've ever met.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you limited to one book a year, or do you just complete a book and then move on to the next? Or
for me, that's been the natural pace. I don't plot before I write. So even something like One Step Too Far, I'm learning the book as I go. I like it because I think when people say they couldn't guess the ending, it's like, well, good, because I didn't know it either. But it's a little bit more cumbersome then, because it's not perfect. There'll be times I'll kind of maybe fork left and 20 pages later be like, oh no, I screwed this up. What I thought can't happen. You have to backtrack. And so given my inefficient but effective writing process,
absolutely,
a book a year it is.
it's something to look forward to. I mean, I know, I think it's Daniel Silva. His book comes out the second Tuesday in every July or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's certain authors that I'm like on the radar. When's your next book? When's your next book? And you're that way. And it does. It's an anticipation. I think anticipation is a great thing. And
I'm generally a January. It's either going to be late January or early February. The winter author. Kick off your new year with Lisa Gardner.
That's right. Take one step. Great step. I know you and Karen are friends, but is there a community of writers that socialize and know each other and support each other that way?
Absolutely. It's interesting when people ask these questions. I think there's a sense that authors must be very competitive. When the fact is, we love meeting other authors. Karen and I have known each other, 15 years. There is the International Thriller Writers that brings a lot of us together once a year in New York. But also, Karen and I had the same publisher for a while. We were doing some of the same publicity events together. You see each other at the same sales conferences and book expos. And there's not terribly many people running around in the world who not only have characters and plot lines in their head, but they want to talk passionately about, head hopping and point of view and pantsing versus plotting. So we really are delighted when we get to meet, a fellow interesting creative person who will have these conversations with us and not look at us as crazily as our friends and family do.
Commonality. I can see where that would be great to be people with a
sense of belonging. We are a tribe, and everyone needs a tribe.
Well, I know some of your books have been made into movies or TV shows or whatever, but has there ever been talk of a Dee Warren show or a Franky Elkins show? It seems like television, Netflix, Amazon are going with more author-driven series.
I know Karen has a very exciting project, Pieces of Her, about to come out on Netflix. And I was very fortunate before she disappeared, which is the first Franky Elkin book. Hilary Swank and E1 Productions have optioned it, looking at turning it into a series with Hilary Swank playing the role of Franky Elkin.
And I can see her as that.
I never picture anyone, everyone in these interviews, I was like, who do you picture being your character? I'm like, oh, I have no idea. But Hilary Swank, I'm like, oh my God, she's totally Franky Elkin. It will be great.
That would be, and would it be a series or just a one time?
Yeah, so they're looking at what they call the limited series, which is what you see on Netflix or Amazon or HBO. I think they're developing the series first, and then they'll look at what's called the distribution, which are the platforms. But yeah, 6 episodes. It'd be very exciting.
Yeah. Now, I Karen just, told me the other day that the Will Trent, Sarah Linton are getting closer. I've been waiting on that. And so it's
Will Trent is one of my all-time favorite characters. So I can't wait. I'm very excited
about that. And then, if you get yours on, and Lee Child just got Reacher starts.
Tomorrow we'll have that.
Tomorrow. Well, February 4th.
You know what I think?
It is fantastic. I have seen it.
Oh, have you? Oh,
Yes.
yay.
It is. That guy, Alan Richardson, is going to be.
He looks it. Yes. This is a real golden opportunity for books now. In the past, you took a big thriller like One Step Too Far, one of Karen's books, and you tried to make it a movie. But the truth is, even in a 2-hour movie, it's only half of the book, which is why people, when they see the movie, say the book is better. But you start doing 6-hour-long or even 50-minute episodes, now you can do the depth. You can capture so much. So now that we've kind of moved into that direction of these limited series, they are perfect for book adaptation and well done, which is why I think we're seeing so much of it. And it's very exciting, both for me as a novelist, but I'm still a huge reader. I'm excited to see this stuff come to Netflix and so forth.
Listen, when they sent me Reacher to, it was 10 episodes, I think. Yeah, I was just next to it, just one more, and then went right through it. Because it captured the essence of the books. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I hope with Spirit. I'm so, hoping they keep her essence of that story. And
well, I live in the mountains of New Hampshire where we're supposed to have a good snowstorm tomorrow. So I can tell you what I'll be doing.
Couldn't be better timing. Timing. Listen, I have appreciated this so much. I have been, like I said, I've been a fan of yours forever. I've loved every book as it comes along. I look forward. The anticipation is great to the next Lisa Gardner book. So I would wish you much success, but you've already had much success. But
oh, thank you, Jackie. This has been so much fun, and it's such a delight to speak with you. I love talking to people who love books as much as I do.
I love books, and I particularly love your books. So
thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you,
Karen. It's like we've been set up on a blind date by Karen Slaughter. And look, it worked out beautifully.
We will talk to you later. Okay.
Thank you.